John Locke once said, "Of all the men we meet with, 9 parts of 10 are what they are, good or evil, useful or not, by their education."
We can do this by putting 100,000 policemen on the streets. We can do this by putting the prevention measures into play that Representative just talked about. And we can do this, yes, we can do this by having a ban on assault weapons. So Schumer mentioned
I went all the way down.
We aren't born with a defined destiny, rather shaped by our environment, as we start with a quote-unquote blank slate. This philosophy is a pillar of American democracy and the core promise of the Declaration of Independence, stating that all men are created equal and are entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For most, that pursuit begins at the school desk, in a system hailed as the backbone of the American dream.
Typically, political institutions, economic institutions, in this case, educational institutions, they tend to serve dominant ideologies. And what you're looking at is systemic and structural racism in this case.
But for marginalized communities, the system has shifted from a pillar of democracy to instead a mechanism of control. The status quo is systematically funneling them into the school-to-prison pipeline. That brings up the question, if the state provides a ladder for some, but builds a pipeline for others, are all men really created equal? To understand the school-to-prison pipeline, you have to understand our perception of the children inside it.
Is in Florida, and Jenna, you know, we direct file more children as adults into the adult prison than any other state in America. And it's so sad when you sit in the courtroom and you see that they're direct filing 14-year-old Black and Hispanic boys.
The United States adopted a framework where children aren't students to be taught, but rather liabilities to be managed.
At a very early age, you could have what we call streaming. So at a very young age, what you could have is students in grades 7 and 8, they're streamed to go into technological education.
In this world, equality is replaced by a presumption of guilt. If you're born into a certain community or born as a certain skin color, the system doesn't see your potential. Instead, it sees your quote-unquote unruliness as a security risk. Systemic discrimination ensures that the path to success isn't a ladder, rather a tightrope. And the system provides no safety net. One slip, one classroom disruption, and it's all over. The inherent assumption under the super predator theory that a child's mistake constitutes a criminal offense has crippled their professional lives even before they have begun. This brings us to the political mechanism of the pipeline, the death of consent. John Locke argued for the social contract, the belief that we give up certain freedoms in exchange for a society that protects people's rights, with the right to revolt if citizens believe said rights are not being upheld to a sufficient extent. This is consent of the governed, but in the modern American school, that contract is being torn up without permission. It was just one minor mistake, the kind of mistake an affluent student might resolve with the parent-teacher conference. Instead, becomes a stain on their permanent record that follows them for life. This affects the underprivileged from getting jobs, opportunities, and often leads them to being stuck and unable to move on from their past.
My friend Brian Stevenson put it perfectly. He said, "You get treated better in this country if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent." And that's why
The result is a system where the classroom is instead a trial of who can behave, rather who can learn. As John Locke once inquired, if the social contract only offers you surveillance instead of safety, do you still have the right to revolt? Or have they simply been removed from the all men the founders were talking about? Notice how throughout this documentary, I never say the word our. I speak from a place of privilege, and even from that, I'm not even American. I'm from Canada. But the thing is, I have friends and family in the US who know people who are affected by this, and it genuinely hurts me when I learn about these stories. The school-to-prison pipeline looks like a blatant breach of the 1776 Covenant. It is instead a new tyranny that contradicts the very image of the city on the hill that US citizens were originally promised. To truly celebrate this milestone, the nation must decide, is it a land of zero tolerance or unalienable rights? If happiness is a right, the path to it cannot be reserved for the elite. It is time to fulfill the promissory note for every student, ensuring that all men really are created equal, including everyone, no matter what the system thinks.